Have you ever spent years doing everything right, yet feeling completely unseen? Claire Whitmore did. For 3 years, she was the quiet shadow behind a powerful CEO, perfect schedules, perfect silence, never noticed, never thanked, until one business trip changed everything. He had mocked her, once called her forgettable. But when she stepped out of the shadows and into herself, he could not look away. Neither could anyone else. What do you do when the person who overlooked you finally sees you? Do you forgive? Do you start over? Or do you choose yourself if you have ever felt invisible? This story is for you. Lean in and ask yourself, what would you do if the world finally saw you, but you had already learned to live without it? The light filtered through the tall windows of the corner office, painting faint shadows across the hardwood floor. The room was quiet, except for the soft clicking of a laptop and the low hum of air conditioning. Morning in Los Angeles could feel still like this, especially 35 stories above the street. Claire Whitmore stood by the glass divider, holding a steaming mug of black coffee. She had been standing there for nearly a minute, unnoticed. Again. Across the room, Julian Blake finished his Zoom call. He did not glance up as she approached his desk. His fingers tapped out one last note before he spoke. "You always blend into the walls, Claire." His voice was calm, even amused. She placed the mug gently on the coaster to his right. "Your coffee? No sugar. Extra strong." He nodded but did not look up. Claire did not expect a thank you. She had stopped waiting for those a long time ago. She turned and walked out as quietly as she had entered. Just like every morning, Julian Blake was not cruel, at least, not in the obvious ways. He was brilliant, sharp, and impeccably dressed. His suits were always custom. His watch always told the exact time in 3 time zones. His reputation in the entertainment industry was one of ruthless efficiency. Deals got done, mistakes got corrected. There was no room for softness. He had built Blake Entertainment Group from the ground up, from nothing. Now, it was one of the biggest independent media groups in California. Some even said in the country. He had offices in Los Angeles, New York, Austin, and London. He had never taken a vacation that lasted more than 2 days. He answered emails at 2 a.m., and people admired him for it, feared him a little too. Claire had worked for him for 3 years, 3 long years of perfect calendars, precisely timed meetings, and flawlessly executed travel schedules. She had learned to anticipate his needs before he spoke. She knew when he would need a bottle of water. She knew how he liked his emails filed. She knew when to speak and when not to. Mostly, she did not. Her job was not to be seen. Her job was to make his work look effortless, to make him look flawless, and she was good at it. The office outside his glass room buzzed with activity. Assistants walked briskly, phones rang, laughter came from the direction of the marketing team. Claire moved past all of it, like a quiet stream cutting through noise. She reached her desk, a small corner tucked between the executive wing and the elevator bay. No windows, no decorations, just her monitor, a filing tray, and a small potted plant that looked more tired than alive. She sat down and opened the day's brief. A meeting at 10, investor call at 1, internal strategy session at 3, all already confirmed. At exactly 8:35 a.m., her phone buzzed. A new calendar event had been added. Investor Summit, Miami, Florida. 3 days. Her name was on the itinerary. Her room had already been booked. Julian had made the decision. As usual, no discussion. Claire stared at the screen. She blinked once, then twice. No email, no message. just a silent update. Another quiet command, wrapped in digital precision. Later that afternoon, as the office thinned out, Claire remained at her desk. Outside, the city turned amber with the sunset. The reflection in the glass caught her eye. She barely recognized the woman looking back. Brown hair tied neatly, no makeup, blouse buttoned to the collar, a face that said, "I am here to help." Nothing more. She had chosen this look, not because she lacked taste or confidence, but because it was safe, because being seen felt dangerous. She remembered her mother once saying, "Pretty makes people expect things from you." So Claire had chosen to disappear, one careful choice at a time. Muted tones, flat shoes, clean lines, straight posture, invisible, but dependable. And if no one noticed her, at least no one could use her. That night, she took the bus home. She always did. Her small apartment in West Hollywood was quiet. The kitchen light flickered, as it always did. She did not bother to fix it. She made toast for dinner, 2 slices, butter only. Then she sat on the old armchair by the window, legs tucked under her, a notebook in her lap. She stared at the page for a long time before writing one sentence. "You always blend into the walls. Claire." She underlined it twice. Julian had not meant it cruelly. It was just true. And somehow, that made it worse. She closed the notebook. For a long moment, she just sat there, listening to the refrigerator hum, watching the shadow of the streetlight sway against the wall. She looked at her reflection in the window. And then, slowly, something inside her moved. Not anger, not sadness. Something quieter, deeper. A soft question rising to the surface. Is this all I am? Claire had always been calm, steady, controlled. She did not make scenes. She did not chase attention. But as she sat there, in that small apartment with the broken light and cold toast, she realized something. She had made herself small so others could be comfortable, and she was tired of that. The next morning, she arrived at the office at 7:15. As always, coffee, calendar, confirmations. She watched as Julian stepped into the elevator, phone in hand, eyes distant. She looked at him as the doors closed, then she looked down at herself. Same blouse, same flats, same quiet rhythm, but now, something had shifted. She just did not know what it meant yet. Not fully. Not yet. But she would. Very soon. Claire Whitmore had learned the art of silence early. She was 9 when her father first told her, "Quiet girls do not cause trouble." He said it once at the dinner table, and again when she spilled milk on the carpet, and again when she cried after school because the teacher called her forgettable. By the time she turned 12, Claire had stopped interrupting, stopped raising her hand in class, stopped telling people when something hurt. She became very good at going unnoticed. Her childhood home in Sacramento was neat, organized, and quiet. Her father liked it that way. Her mother moved like a shadow, always picking up after everyone else, never speaking above a whisper. Claire watched her mother carefully, the way she nodded, even when she disagreed, the way she smiled when she was tired, the way she disappeared inside her own life without anyone asking why. That was how Claire learned to shrink herself, not out of fear, out of survival. At 17, Claire got her first job as a receptionist at a dentist's office. She wore gray sweaters and flat shoes. She never painted her nails, never talked too much. The older patients liked her. She is respectful, polite, professional. She wore that praise like armor. Later, at college, she studied business administration, not because she loved numbers, but because it was practical. Clean, safe. She shared a dorm with two roommates who were louder, prettier, more magnetic. They threw parties, had drama, took selfies in front of the mirror. Claire made tea. She never minded being alone. At least, that was what she told herself. When she graduated, Claire moved to Los Angeles. She found a small studio apartment in West Hollywood, 450 square feet, one window, a single closet. Just enough space for a twin bed, a small table, and her bookshelf. She liked it. It was quiet, predictable. Her wardrobe stayed simple. Neutrals, clean cuts, nothing that made a statement. She had 4 pairs of shoes, 2 purses, no earrings. No one ever told her she looked pretty, but they always said she looked professional. She made routines, coffee at 6:30, walk to the bus by 7:10. Office at 7:45, always 10 minutes before anyone else arrived. She brought her lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, sometimes soup in winter. She ate at her desk. Sometimes, people walked by without realizing she was even there. She became so efficient that no one had to ask her twice, and so invisible that no one asked her anything at all. On weekends, she did laundry, watered her plant, watched documentaries, read books no one ever asked her opinion about. Once a month, she called her mother. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. Work is good. Yes, I am eating fine. No, I am not seeing anyone. That was enough. One Friday night, nearly a year ago, a coworker named Ellie invited Claire to a rooftop party. Claire went. She wore a navy blouse and black slacks. Everyone else wore dresses and heels and bright lipstick. Someone handed her a cocktail. Someone else asked, "So, what do you do at the company?" Claire replied, "I work with Julian Blake. I manage his schedule. I keep him organized." The girl blinked. "Wait, you're Julian Blake's assistant." Claire nodded. "Wow." "I mean, I guess I just imagined someone more, you know, glamorous." Claire smiled and went home 10 minutes later. She did not go to another party after that, not because she was hurt, but because she understood something. People did not see her as lacking. They just did not see her at all. It did not bother her, not in the way people might assume. It became part of her identity, this quiet strength, this gentle invisibility. She got things done. She never missed a detail. She handled pressure. She never complained, never cried at work. She did not want to be the center of attention. She just wanted to be respected. But respect, she had learned, did not always come for the quiet ones. A few months ago, she overheard someone in the elevator whisper, "I think Claire is the reason Julian never falls apart." The comment surprised her. She had never thought of herself that way, as necessary. She had always assumed she was replaceable. That thought lingered with her for days. Now, with a sudden trip to Miami added to her calendar, Claire sat in her apartment once more, notebook open, same chair, same soft light. She thought about everything she had learned, about silence, about safety, about invisibility, and slowly, without even knowing why, she wrote one word on a new page. Enough. She looked at it for a long time. One word, 5 letters, but full of weight. Something stirred in her chest. Not a storm, not a rebellion, just a quiet recognition that maybe, just maybe, it was time to become visible. Monday morning came quietly. Claire Whitmore walked into the office at 7:12 as always. The sky over Los Angeles was still pale. The city was just beginning to stir. Inside Blake Entertainment Group, the usual rhythm was already moving. Emails, calendars, deadlines, Claire's desk was clean. Her day had been pre-planned on Friday. Everything was ready. But something new waited on her screen. A calendar update sent late Sunday evening. Investor Summit, Miami, Florida, 3 days, travel confirmed. She blinked, then opened the full itinerary. Flights, hotel, room service, authorization, ground transport, all booked. Her name was listed directly under Julian Blake's. She had not been asked, just added. She stared at the screen. One part of her wanted to sigh, another part of her wanted to laugh. Neither happened. Instead, she closed the laptop for a moment and sat back. The sounds of the office slowly filled the room, phones ringing, heels clicking on tile, the low hum of conversation. Claire was not surprised. This was how things worked. Julian made decisions. Others followed. There was no invitation, no discussion, only expectation. By mid-morning, Julian stepped out of his office. He walked past her desk, speaking as he moved. "We will need all investor portfolios printed and pre-tabbed. Bring your notes. I want you in every session." His tone was clipped, focused, confident. He paused only briefly. "You fly with me, Wednesday? First flight out." Then he was gone, just like that. Claire opened a blank email, typed 3 words, "Do I have to?" then stopped. She deleted the draft. She could feel something swirling inside her chest, a feeling she did not quite know how to name, not anger, not fear, not even frustration. It felt like a boundary being pushed. Again, but this time, something inside her pushed back. At lunch, she left the office. She walked without purpose for a few blocks, past coffee shops, palm trees, street vendors, past a group of teenagers laughing too loud, past a florist setting out pale pink peonies in metal buckets. She stopped and looked at the flowers, not because she wanted to buy them, but because they made her feel something: softness, beauty, aliveness, things she had not allowed herself in a long time. Back at her desk, she confirmed the travel, checked in for the flight, printed the documents. She did it all without showing anything on her face, but inside, a quiet decision had taken root. If she was going to go, she would not go as the same woman who always blended into the walls. That night, Claire went home and stood in front of her closet. One side held her office clothes, blazers, button-downs, flat shoes. The other side was nearly empty. She stared for a long time, then opened her laptop. She searched for Miami weather in April, then simple beach dresses, then finally, how to feel beautiful without dressing loud. She did not want to look like someone else. She just wanted to see herself differently. The next day, Ellie from accounting stopped her in the break room. "Miami? Huh, that sounds like a big deal." Claire smiled. "First summit I have been invited to." Ellie raised an eyebrow. Invited, or ordered? Claire laughed softly. "Fair enough," then added, more to herself than to Ellie. Still, it might be time for something new. Ellie tilted her head. "New job." Claire shook her head. "New way of showing up." Ellie gave her a look, one of curiosity, not judgment, then nodded. "Well, I hope they are ready." Later that night, Claire stood in front of her mirror. She let her hair down. She rarely did. It fell gently around her shoulders, a little longer than she remembered, a little softer than she had allowed it to be. She looked at her own eyes, gray, calm, and steady. And for the first time in a long while, she did not look away. She whispered to her reflection, "You are not a shadow. You do not need permission to be seen. Somewhere, Deep inside, something answered back. It felt like truth. Not loud, but clear, and more than anything, it felt ready. The morning sun crept gently through the small window of Claire's apartment. It fell across the floor, across the faded carpet, across the small suitcase sitting by the closet door. Claire Whitmore stood barefoot in the middle of the room, her hair still damp from the shower. She held a towel in one hand and a quiet question in the other. What does it mean to change? But stay true to yourself. She had been asking herself that all morning. The trip to Miami was 2 days away. Claire had already packed the work files, color-coded tabs, flash drive backups, business cards, but her clothes still untouched. She walked to the closet, pulled open both sides, left slacks, white shirts, stiff blazers, right a few unused dresses, some soft cardigans, a pair of sandals she had not worn since college. She touched the fabric of a linen blouse she'd forgotten she owned, light beige, gentle folds, loose at the shoulders, comfortable. It did not scream for attention, but it did not hide either. She smiled. Maybe that was enough. That afternoon, Claire did something she had not done in years. She stepped into a boutique. It was a small place tucked near Melrose, with clean wooden floors and light jazz playing in the background. A woman with short silver hair and kind eyes approached. First time here, Claire nodded. I am not really a fashion person. The woman smiled warmly. You do not need to be. You just need to be. You. Claire tried on 3 things. A pale blue sundress with pockets, a cream-colored silk blouse that shimmered faintly in the light, a pair of wide-leg pants that moved like water when she walked. Each piece felt simple, not flashy, but honest. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself. Not the assistant version, not the invisible version, just Claire. She bought them all. The woman at the counter folded the clothes gently, then looked at her. New job. Claire shook her head. Same job, different way of showing up. The woman smiled again. Sounds like it is time. Claire left the store with a paper bag and something else. A lightness in her chest. Back home, she laid the new clothes on her bed. She opened the small jewelry box she rarely touched. Inside was a necklace her mother had given her at graduation. Just a silver circle on a thin chain. She had never worn it. Now she placed it around her neck and watched how it rested quietly at her collarbone. Not bold, but present, just like her. Later, she washed her hair and let it air dry. She stood in front of the mirror and ran her fingers through the waves. Not perfect, a little unruly, a little freer. She smiled at the woman, looking back, and whispered softly, You are allowed to take up space. The next morning, she woke early, packed carefully, every piece of clothing folded with intention. She added a small book of poetry to her bag, one she had never finished reading. Maybe now was the right time. That afternoon, she stopped at a small cafe near the office, ordered tea and sat outside. She watched people walk by, some fast, some slow, some laughing. She saw a girl with messy hair wearing a bright red scarf and loud earrings. And for the first time, she did not feel envy. She just felt glad that the world had space for color, for volume, for visibility, maybe, finally, for her too. At the office, Julian Blake was in full preparation mode. Claire briefed him at noon, walked him through the investor roster, confirmed presentation details, delivered updated agendas. He did not ask her how she was doing. He never did. But as she turned to leave his office, He glanced up for half a second, a pause, a small flicker of attention, then it passed. Claire walked out with her notes. Calm, steady, but this time, she felt something new. Not resentment, not hope, just strength. That night, she made a list in her notebook. Simple things. Ostar flight details, client folders, conference schedule, one outfit that feels like me. One moment to breathe, she circled that last line, because this trip was not just about work. It was about something else, something quiet, something overdue. She placed the pen down, looked around her small apartment. It was still the same, but she was not anymore. The sky over Miami was open and blue. Warmth wrapped the air, even as morning drifted into noon. Claire Whitmore stepped off the jet bridge into the soft humidity of the Florida coast. The terminal buzzed with travelers, rolling suitcases, sunglasses, laughter. She held her small carry-on in one hand, her bag with the files in the other. Behind her, Julian Blake walked with long, fast steps. He said nothing. He rarely did at airports. A driver from the resort waited with a sign. Julian nodded at the man, barely slowing. Claire followed behind, calm, focused. They stepped into a sleek, black SUV, leather seats, cool air, bottled water on ice. Outside the tinted windows, palm trees passed by in waves. Claire watched the colors change. From gray buildings to bright, pink hotels. From city noise to ocean breeze. The further they went, the quieter it got. They reached the resort just past 1 o'clock. White stone walls, balconies with pale blue railings, gardens filled with tropical flowers. The sound of waves just beyond. The Bell Point Resort was known for its privacy, a place for executives and celebrities. Claire had read about it once, never thought she would see it. Now she was walking under its high arches, the marble floors echoing beneath her steps. Julian moved quickly through check-in. The concierge handed him 2 room keys. Presidential suite, Mr. Blake, and the Atlantic View suite for your associate. Julian passed 1 key to Claire without looking at her. Briefing at 4. Dinner with board chair at 7. Claire nodded. Yeah, sir. He was already halfway to the elevator. The bellman showed Claire to her room. It was quiet, tasteful. A large bed with crisp linens, a balcony overlooking the sea. She set her bags down gently, walked to the sliding glass door, stepped outside. The wind touched her face. Salt, heat, open sky. Below. The pool sparkled. The ocean moved in steady rhythm beyond it. A few birds circled. A couple held hands near a shaded cabana. Everything felt slow here, and soft. Claire sat in the chair on the balcony. She took off her shoes, let her feet feel the stone floor beneath her. She had not realized how tired she was. Not from travel, from always holding herself small. After a moment, she unpacked. She placed the work materials on the desk, hung 2 dresses in the closet, laid out the cream blouse she had bought on Melrose, the one that moved when she walked. She ran her fingers over the fabric, then looked at herself in the mirror. Just for a moment, no approval, no judgment, just looking. Later that afternoon, she joined Julian in a private meeting room. She spoke with clarity, outlining the session flow, confirming attendance lists, clarifying the translation support. Julian nodded at her notes. Rarely said more than a sentence, but at one point, he looked at her a little longer than usual, not with surprise, more like hesitation. Then he looked away. After the meeting, Claire walked back to her room. passed by a hallway filled with golden light. Her steps slowed. She heard faint music from the pool, soft laughter, the clink of glass. For a second, she considered going back out, but not yet. That evening, she sat on her balcony again, hair tied up, bare feet tucked under her. She watched the sunset stretch over the water, colors she did not have names for, gold turning to rose, then deepening to violet. She whispered to herself, "You are here." 3 simple words, but they meant something. Because this time, she had not just followed. She had chosen. Tomorrow, she would swim. She would wear the new suit folded carefully in her drawer. Not for attention, not for anyone else. Just because it was beautiful, and so was she. Even if no one had told her that in a long, long time. The morning began like any other at the Bell Point Resort. Soft light filled the sky. A thin mist lifted gently from the sea. The pool area was quiet, except for the sound of water lapping against the tile edges. Claire Whitmore stood at the edge of the pool. She had risen early, earlier than usual. The resort was still asleep, for the most part. She wore a deep, teal swimsuit, simple and elegant. A thin cotton wrap hung loosely from her shoulders. No makeup, no jewelry, just herself. She stepped into the water without hesitation. The pool was warm, gentle, like being held. She swam with quiet, strong strokes, not rushed, not posed, just steady. Every movement belonged to her. Every breath was her own. The water moved around her body, smooth and forgiving. She did not think about who might be watching. She did not think about anything at all, only the rhythm, the coolness, the silence, and the freedom. At the far end of the pool, Julian Blake sat beneath a white umbrella. He had arrived 15 minutes earlier, laptop open, glass of iced tea nearby. He had not known Claire was here. He had not expected to look up, but when he did, something inside him stopped. At first, he did not realize it was her. The woman moving through the water was graceful, effortless. There was confidence in her posture, calm in her form. She reached the wall, turned smoothly, and swam again. When she reached the shallow end and stood, he saw her face, Claire. But not the Claire he was used to. No blazer, no pencil skirt, no bun tightened into invisibility. Just wet hair falling softly around her shoulders, skin glowing under the morning light. A stillness in her expression that was not shy. It was present. It was real. Julian sat back in his chair. He told himself it was nothing. Just surprise. Just professional awareness. But something in his chest tightened. He looked away, then looked back. She was no longer swimming. She was sitting at the edge of the pool, her feet in the water, towel draped over her lap, reading, a small paperback. One hand resting lightly against the page. Claire felt the sun on her arms. She turned a little to adjust the light, then glanced up and saw him, Julian, sitting under the umbrella, watching. Their eyes met, not for long, just a second. But it was enough. Something passed between them. Neither smiled, neither looked away quickly, but neither moved closer, either. Then Claire turned back to her book, calm, unbothered, completely herself. Julian shifted in his seat, closed the laptop. He had forgotten what he was even working on. His thoughts were moving too fast and too slow, all at once. Other guests had started to arrive. A couple claimed lounge chairs. A family with children found shade near the palm trees. A man in his 40s, tall and tanned, nodded politely toward Claire. She smiled, just a little. Not flirtatious, just kind. The man walked past her with a second glance. Julian noticed, and hated that he did. He stood up and walked toward the bar, ordered a coffee, did not need it, just needed something to hold. He leaned against the counter, tried to focus on the day ahead, investor meetings, lunch with legal, slide deck reviews, important things. But all he could think about was the way she had looked in the water, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked whole. She looked like someone who no longer apologized for being seen. And somehow, that unsettled him. Claire closed her book and stood, wrapped the towel around her waist, picked up her sandals. She did not rush. She did not glance back. She walked across the pool deck with the same quiet poise she always had. But something was different, and Julian felt it, deeply, back in her room. Claire dried her hair, slowly. She did not think about Julian. Not much, just for a moment. She remembered the way he had looked at her. Not critical, not cold, not even curious, but unsure. And that, somehow, made her feel free. She opened her notebook, wrote one line, "When they finally look, make sure you are not waiting." She closed the cover and smiled. Later that afternoon, the resort's main courtyard filled with movement, laughter, ice cubes clinking, flip-flops against stone. Claire Whitmore sat at a table under a wide umbrella near the garden walkway. A book open, a glass of iced water in her hand. She had changed into a light summer dress, ivory-colored, simple. It moved gently with the breeze. She looked relaxed, like she belonged here, like she had not spent years hiding behind structure and silence. Across the courtyard, Julian Blake stood at the bar near the conference area. He had planned to review a contract, but his eyes kept drifting. Back to her. She was not alone anymore. A man had joined her table, tall, tan, easy smile. Julian recognized him, Ethan Rowe, one of the keynote speakers. Former startup CEO turned consultant, known for charm and clever sound bites. Claire and Ethan were laughing. Nothing loud, but honest, real. Ethan leaned in slightly, spoke with animation. Claire listened, eyes bright, posture open. Julian tightened his grip on the folder in his hand. He was not sure why. A few minutes passed. Then Julian stepped away from the bar. He walked across the courtyard toward their table. It was not planned. He just found himself moving. Claire saw him first. Her smile softened. She set her glass down. Calm, unbothered. Julian. He nodded. "I need to review tomorrow's numbers. Before the session with the investors." Ethan looked between them. Claire did not flinch. "I will be available later this evening. Right now. I am on break." Julian paused. Something about the way she said it. Firm, clear, but not hostile. Ethan looked amused. "We were just talking about narrative structure. She has sharp instincts." Julian gave a tight smile. "She is efficient. That is why I brought her." Claire's eyes held his. "I am more than efficient." Julian said nothing, then turned. "Let me know when you are ready," and walked away. Claire watched him leave, then turned back to Ethan. "Sorry about that." Ethan waved it off. Old boss. New tension. She gave a small shrug, more like growing space. Ethan smiled. "Well, you wear it well. The space." Claire laughed quietly, then opened her book again, not to read, just to breathe. Back in his suite, Julian stood at the window. He could see the pool area below. Claire was no longer there. He poured a glass of water, sat down, tried to focus on the agenda, numbers, percentages, talking points, but the words blurred. What bothered him was not that she had said no. It was that she had not hesitated. For years, Claire had followed every instruction, quickly, quietly. Now she drew lines, soft ones, but they held, and he did not know what to do with that. He had worked with dozens of assistants. None had stayed longer than 18 months, except Claire. She had stayed 3 years, always on time, always prepared, always quiet, until now. That night, he received a message from Claire. Available at 8:30. If you still need to review materials. He stared at the screen, then typed back, "Yes, my suite." At exactly 8:30, she knocked. He opened the door. She stood there, in navy slacks and a soft blouse, hair loose, folder in hand, still Claire, but somehow more. They sat at the dining table, went through the investor brief. She explained her suggestions. He listened, but his mind was not on the charts. It was on the curve of her voice, the calm in her eyes, the presence she carried now. When the meeting ended, she stood. That should cover it. He nodded, yes. A pause. She adjusted the strap of her bag. "Good night, Julian." He almost said her name, almost asked her to stay, but he did not. So she left. Alone in the quiet room, he poured another glass of water. This time, it tasted like something was missing. The night was still, no wind, just the sound of the ocean brushing against the shore. Claire Whitmore stood alone on the balcony of her suite, a shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders. Below, the lights from the pool shimmered like silver threads on blue glass. The sky stretched wide above her, stars steady, unmoving. She held a cup of tea in both hands. The warmth settled her. The silence felt full, not empty. There was a knock. Soft, measured. She opened the door. Julian Blake stood in the hallway. He did not wear a jacket, just a black shirt and quiet eyes. "Do you have a minute?" She looked at him for a moment, then stepped aside. "Yes." "Come in." They sat on the balcony. 2 chairs, a small table between them. She poured him a cup of tea. He took it without a word. For a while, they just sat, listening to the waves, letting the moment breathe. Finally, Julian spoke. "I owe you something." Claire looked over, calm. "What do you think it is?" He paused. "Respect, for one, and maybe acknowledgement." She waited. "I did not mean to treat you as invisible, but I think I did." Her voice was soft. "You did. But I let you." The words settled between them. Not heavy. Just true. Claire turned slightly toward him. "I learned to disappear a long time ago. Not because I wanted to, but because it felt easier." Julian listened, easier than explaining who I was, what I needed, what I deserved. He looked down at his hands. "I do not ask many questions. Claire, I expect people to adapt to my pace, my rules." She nodded slowly. "You do?" He met her eyes. "And you did? Until now." A wave crashed louder below. Then the quiet returned. Claire leaned back slightly. "It is strange, how easy it is to shrink yourself, a little each day. Until one morning, you cannot find the edges anymore." She was not crying. Her voice was steady. "This was not pain. It was truth. I wore clothes that erased me, avoided mirrors, answered questions with nods, and no one noticed. Until I changed." Julian was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I noticed, but I did not know how to respond." Claire gave a small smile. "That is honest." He looked at her. "When I saw you yesterday, by the pool." He stopped. search for the right words. You looked like someone I had never met, but also someone I should have. She did not reply. He kept going. And today, when you said no, when you made space for yourself, I felt. He exhaled. Unsteady. Claire looked at the tea in her hands, then set it down. Julian, I do not need you to admire me or regret anything. I need to know that the way I live now openly, fully, is not a problem for you. His voice was low. It is not. It is something I respect. A pause. And I am still figuring out what that means for me. The ocean shifted in the dark. Claire leaned forward. I think I used to want you to notice me. I do not anymore. He blinked. She continued. I want to be seen. Yes. But not rescued. Not pursued like a prize. Just understood. As I am. Julian looked down at his hands, then back at her. I do not know if I can be the person who gives you that, but I want to try. She studied his face, not searching for promises. Just honesty. That matters more than trying to impress me. The wind picked up slightly. Claire stood. Walked to the railing. Julian followed. They stood side by side. Neither spoke. But the silence felt less like distance now. More like space. Room for possibility. She turned to him. Thank you for coming. And for saying it. He nodded. Thank you for listening. She smiled, then stepped back. Good night. Julian, good night. Claire. He walked away, and for the first time in a long while, she did not feel small. She felt seen, but more importantly, she had seen herself. And that changed everything. The next morning, the conference center at Bell Point Resort buzzed with polished energy. People in tailored suits walked briskly between sessions. The air smelled of fresh coffee, leather folders, and ambition. Claire Whitmore arrived early. She wore a pale cream dress, clean lines, soft fabric, no loud details, but something about the way she moved drew glances. Not for beauty, but for presence. She moved through the main hall with quiet command, checked speaker placements, adjusted seating charts, coordinated with translators, every name, every time slot, every room detail she had it memorized. No clipboard, just certainty. Julian Blake arrived 10 minutes before his keynote. Claire handed him a small folder. Updated slides. Room temperature adjusted. Your mic is at the podium. He glanced at her. Thank you. Then paused. You look. She looked up. Waiting. Focused. She smiled. That is true. The presentation began. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the audience. Julian spoke clearly, firmly, with the ease of someone who had done this 100 times. Claire stood off to the side, near the AV table, not hidden, but not central either. Just watching, just ready. At one point, he looked her way. Not long, just enough. Her calm grounded him. She was not taking notes, not checking the clock. She was simply there, and he felt it. After the session, the hall filled again with voices. People clapped, shook hands, shared cards. Julian was pulled into conversation after conversation. Claire quietly stepped in to guide him when needed, gently redirected a pushy investor, covered for a missed lunch slot, caught a translation error on a client handout, all without being asked. Later, near the networking patio, Julian stood by the espresso bar. Alina Marsh, a senior executive from a rival group, approached. She held a cocktail in one hand and her confidence in the other. That was a sharp presentation. Julian, thank you. She sipped, studied the crowd. Your assistant. Claire. Right. Yes. She is remarkably competent. Julian nodded once. She is. Alina tilted her head. Does she stay long-term? He looked at her. Why? Because I could use someone like her. Claire approached just then, holding a printed summary. Julian, they moved the tech panel to 4:15. He nodded, took the page. Alina watched her. Claire, do you enjoy working here? Claire met her gaze, not sharp, not shy, just honest. I believe in growth, and I believe in clarity. Right now, I have both. Then she walked away. Alina gave a short laugh. Well then, that was an answer. Julian said nothing. He followed Claire with his eyes, and for the first time, truly saw what the world saw. Not the efficient assistant, not the one who blended into walls, but the woman who knew exactly who she was. Back at the table, Claire sorted documents into clean stacks. A younger intern leaned over. How do you stay so calm? Claire smiled softly. I breathe, I listen, and I stop apologizing for being here. The intern blinked, then nodded slowly, as if she had never heard that advice before. Julian watched the exchange from across the room. People were drawn to Claire now, not for favors, but for steadiness, for grace. Later that day, after the final session, Claire sat outside with a glass of sparkling water. She removed her heels, let her feet rest against the cool tile. She watched the sky dim into dusk. No music, no emails, no urgency, just space. Julian stepped out of the building and paused. She did not see him. She was too busy watching a small bird hop near the table leg and smiling. He stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked away. He did not want to interrupt peace that was not his to own. The final evening at Bell Point came quietly. No meetings, no rush. Just the golden sky folding into itself as the sun dipped low. Claire Whitmore stood on the edge of the garden terrace, her arms resting gently along the stone railing. Below, the sea stretched into silence. The wind brushed past her cheek like a soft question. She wore a dress the color of seafoam, light, flowing, honest. Not for anyone else, just for her. Behind her, footsteps approached. Slow, familiar. She did not turn. Julian Blake stopped a few feet away. He waited, then spoke. You are hard to miss tonight. Claire smiled without looking. That is new for me. A pause. I noticed. She turned to face him. He was not wearing a suit, just slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled. For the first time since she met him, he looked real, not perfect, not polished, just a man standing in front of a woman he had not truly seen until now. He walked closer, still left space between them. I came to say something. She nodded once. Go ahead. Julian hesitated, then said it anyway. You are remarkable. You always were. I was just too distracted, or too blind, to see it, and watching others notice what I ignored. He shook his head. It made me realize how badly I misjudged what mattered. Claire looked at him, not angry, not waiting, just listening. He continued, I cannot take back how I acted, or how long it took. But if you are open to it, I would like to start again, not as your boss, but as someone who wants to know the version of you that no longer waits to be noticed. Claire was quiet for a moment, then she stepped closer. Not to close the space, but to speak clearly. Julian, for a long time, I would have said yes without thinking. I would have been grateful just to be chosen. She looked out toward the water, but that version of me does not exist anymore. He stayed silent. She turned back to him. The Claire standing here now knows her worth. She knows love cannot be born from guilt, or loneliness, or sudden attention, a breath. It has to come from recognition and from choice. Julian nodded slowly. That is fair. Claire tilted her head slightly. But this Claire might be open to a coffee. As two people, not roles, not habits, just people. He smiled. A real smile. I would like that very much. She extended her hand. Hi, I am Claire Whitmore. It is nice to meet you. Julian took it gently. Julian Blake, the pleasure is mine. They stood like that for a moment, hand in hand, nothing rushed, nothing expected, just two people who had both missed something important, now ready to see. Later that night, Claire sat on her balcony. She wrote in her notebook, 1 page only. I was never invisible. I was just quiet. And now, I am choosing to be seen. She closed the cover, set it on the table, and looked up at the sky. The stars had arrived, quiet, confident, present, just like her. There comes a time in life, often not loudly, when we begin to ask ourselves, have I lived fully, or have I just quietly survived? The story of Claire Whitmore reminds us, being reliable is important, but being seen is necessary. For years, she worked hard, she stayed quiet, she kept things running for someone else. She made herself small, so others could take up space. Not because she was weak, but because she believed that was the only way to be safe. But real healing begins when we stop waiting for permission, when we stop hoping to be noticed, and start choosing to see our own worth. It is never too late to return to yourself. Never too late to step out of the shadow. Whether you are 28 or 68, you deserve more than usefulness. You deserve to be heard, to be recognized. This is your life, and it is okay to take up space in it. Thank you for spending your precious time with this story. If the quiet strength of Claire touched something in your heart, please consider giving this video a like. Share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that speak gently but deeply. Your support helps voices like hers be heard, and maybe, just maybe, it reminds someone out there that they are not alone.